I want to welcome you this afternoon to Williams Island TV. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to meet the last two staff members, Thaddeus and Carrie, Spar and Food and Beverage. But before we get to meet them, there's a few things I do want to say. And in these crazy times that this world is living in, that we're living in, this is not about politics, this is not about religion, this is about kindness, humanitarianism. And I just want you all to be safe on the island, be kind to each other, and let's make the most of what's going on right now, because we are a family here, we're here for each other, and the board and the island is here to do whatever it takes to make everyone safe. We've increased security on the island. We have made sure that we've improved on communication. We have been working very closely with the city of Aventura, police department. There will be things happening that we're not at liberty to talk about, but it will enhance the safety of the community for us. So we just want to let you know that. Things on the island financially are going extremely well. We are probably in the best financial condition we've been in. The clubhouse and the new community area of the pool is being built. It's right on schedule at this point. It's right on budget and all going well. The demolition of the Island Club is already completed. They already started framing it back together again. And I can't promise you, but we're hoping for next season, everything is back open and in good shape. You're going to meet Carrie and Thaddeus today. One is Food and Beverage, one is the Spa. We all take advantage of both those areas, but the main thing is, for the moment, be safe, stay well, enjoy the show today, and be kind, and have a good day. Good afternoon, and welcome to Williams Island TV. I'm Bob Shelley, and today we're going to finish up on the series with our staff to get to know them a little bit more, and I promised Carrie that I would behave and not ask anything personal of her. And I won't even go into what that is, but we'll keep it to business and to Carrie's life. And on a serious note, the reason we're doing this is I thought really it's so important that we get to know the people that work with us, take care of us, keep us safe, run our projects, run our island for us. But it's more than just, in Carrie's case, more than someone who just runs the spa. There's a life behind that spa, but there's a growing up stage and how you got to this point. So obviously we all know you. I know probably a little bit more about you. But what I'd love to know, first of all, is who is Carrie Griffin?
I'm the youngest of five. I grew up all over the States and all over Europe because my father was in the Air Force, so I'm a military brat.
Oh, that explains it.
Grew up on military bases and ended up born and then returned to Texas. So Texas is my home.
So you were born in Texas, but then you went all over the world.
Right.
That had to be fascinating.
Yes.
I've always wondered what it's like to grow from, you lived on Air Force bases then?
Correct. We lived on Air Force bases, and then we also lived what we called on the economy. So we would live like amongst the country we were in, but sometimes we lived on the military bases as well. So a little bit of both.
So how does the education work? You're going from school to school depending on what country you're in.
You're going from school to school. The schools we went to were on the military bases. No matter where we lived, on or off, we were schooled on the military bases. So your friendships, you learned how to make friends fast, or perhaps you didn't have that many friends. So the fact that there were five of us, and five of us in 5 years, God bless my mother, we were a very tight-knit group as children.
When you say five, that was your family five?
The brothers and sisters. Yeah. There's five brothers and sisters, and we are within 5 years of each other.
So how many kids like yourself are on the base when this is going on?
Hundreds.
Oh, there are.
Hundreds.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A couple hundred. A couple hundred from like elementary through junior high, so 8th grade, and then high school. They combined some military bases together.
So how old were you when you came back into the States?
I was just entering junior high or middle school when I came back.
Okay. So then you were able to get into high school and then obviously go on to
I did high
college.
school here. Yes.
Gotcha. And
My
this was in
sister-
Texas?
Yeah. This was in Texas, San Antonio. Yeah.
By the way, just so you know, the noise you're hearing is we're in the dining room because we're going to be meeting with Thaddeus shortly, and we wanted to see the food and beverage, but please excuse the noise if you hear any. So you go to high school in Texas, and all of a sudden you're a music major. Was
Yes.
someone in your family influential in that?
My father played jazz trumpet,
Oh,
and my grandmother was a organist and a pianist, and those were my influences. Yeah,
so you went into woodwinds,
I did. I went in. I played the flute. Yeah.
and that's what you wanted. And what
Yes.
the mindset? I mean, I played the piano. I went there. That was my major in college. But
Right.
what got you into flute?
My father.
Okay.
Yeah. He wanted one of us to play the flute. I was the last one left.
So that was
I
it.
got the flute, but I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you went to college. Where'd you go?
I went for my bachelor's at University of Texas in Austin. So I'm a Longhorn.
Ooh.
And then I did my master's in Temple University in Philadelphia.
So you have a master's in music.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Did you learn arranging and conducting, and did you have to go through all of that when you were learning?
Yes. Yeah. You had to definitely learn how to conduct. You took some arranging classes, theory classes, of course, piano.
But you like performing.
I do.
I want to ask you because I remember we did I think it was a Christmas show a number of years ago on the island that you played.
Yes.
And I asked you I think I was playing the piano at the time, I may be wrong, and you were doing, I said, just ad lib or do something. And you said, I'm not good at that, I want a piece of music in front of me.
Yes.
Now,
I'm very
coming
classical.
from jazz,
I know.
which is so
I know.
improvisational,
Right.
you were so structured.
Very structured. I'm very structured. Yes.
So it's not
Yeah.
your thing to do.
My father could do both very
Gotcha.
well. But yeah.
See, my father was like that. He was a classical trained pianist, and he could play Beethoven, Bach, whatever. But if you said to him, sit down and play Take Five for Dave Brubeck, he wouldn't know what to do. It was the same way. It was a structure of it.
But my first love of music is jazz, for sure.
Well, my understanding is, and I used to have a jazz club, as you know,
Yeah.
that most of these great jazz artists that would come perform had classical background to start. A lot of them did. So they had an understanding of the music, the timers, the keys, whatever, and then they were able to elaborate off of the structure.
Yes, and that's great. Instead of, like, I have some students that learned strictly by ear, and then it's difficult to make the reverse transition to read music because they depend on their ear.
So you have students. Tell me about it. What is it you do that you have students?
I teach at a music school in Aventura.
Oh.
And I have little students and I have adult students. I have an architect, I have a jeweler who's a
But these are
student.
flautists.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
But I want you to talk about the school because that's what I want to get to. Because the school is not just a school, it's a performing arts school too.
Yes.
And it's for charity that you started.
I started a nonprofit 12 years ago called Music in Miami to allow, it was based on allowing local professionals to play during the summer when all of our orchestra jobs and stuff were not in season and everyone's struggling. Musicians struggle, for sure. Only maybe 1% actually can make a good living, right? So it was just something I did, and it's grown and transformed. And now my home base is at Kalos Music in Aventura, and we have a full concert series, and we have a scholarship program we're trying to build to give back to the kids who need economic help.
So the proceeds from the shows that you do go to the kids' scholarships?
Donations go to the kids'
Donations.
scholarship. The ticket sales go towards the hall, the artists that are performing, right? Because they have obviously they need to be paid as well. And then we ask for donations to
And the
have
donation
a
goes
fund.
to the scholarship to help the kids in their
yes,
studies?
Yes, and that part is tax deductible.
Do you have trouble getting that?
Always.
Always, yeah.
Always, yeah.
But you should promote, and we'll get Arlene to put something in our newsletter because people could actually go to these shows.
Yes. Yeah, anyone can come. We've had some residents come already.
Oh, you have? Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, we have this jazz show that we do once a month on the island.
Yes.
Would it be possible to get them to come here and perform and do something like that here?
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
we should, because that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be
I
a
mean,
lot
there's
of fun.
nothing to limit them from just one show. What would
Right.
be involved to do that? I mean, you'd have to pick a certain subject matter of music.
Yeah, I mean, just making sure the date is available and
All right.
asking and
So, Arlene, we're going to work on that because we have 4 more shows coming up.
okay.
So it'd be great to do something with them, and
Sure.
also would promote the event as well.
Sure. All
And then
about
we're
it.
going to print. We're going to make sure something is in the newsletter about this program. That's wonderful. But why'd you get involved with this? That's interesting. That's so beautiful that you did that.
Well, I think music is amazing. I mean, music is just for kids, for me who's so structured. It was, it was great for me to have something to participate in. Ever since I was 10, I've been playing music, and there's tons of research that supports kids who have music in their life and have a activity, a hobby. It doesn't have to become a profession.
Right.
Do better in school. I mean, it's the same with athletics. I think that's why I love everything I do, because athletically it does so much for us as a kid and through adulthood, and music does the exact same thing. It's just a different way of
But that's a
communication.
beautiful thing that you feel that way, and that comes, I guess, from your background of having music so much a part of your family life.
Yes, yeah, it was,
Yeah.
yeah, completely.
So, the transition from music, and you never stopped music, but how'd you get into physical?
Well, that's a funny story.
Okay.
So I was in Philadelphia doing my master's, and I was on faculty of several music schools there. And I was married at the time, and he was also a musician, but he also had a side job that gave him a sizable promotion to come to Miami and work in a store down here. So all of a sudden, we're leaving Philadelphia, coming down to Miami, South Miami. And
Now, you were young back
luckily,
then at this time.
I'm still young, Bob.
Well, of course, younger.
I was, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I was just out doing my master's. And so anyway, so we came down here. Luckily, we both got into the Miami City Ballet, but that doesn't pay all of the bills.
Now,
And-
when you say got in, you in the orchestra.
and-
ballet.
Of the ballet, right.
did
Definitely not dancing.
And what did he play?
Trumpet.
Trumpet. Like your dad.
Like my dad, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But then Hurricane Andrew came, and we lived in Country Walk.
Oh, they got wiped
and
out.
everything was destroyed, including all of our work, and everything kind of came to a halt. And through that, we're trying to rebuild ourselves. And I all of a sudden saw this ad in the paper to become an aerobics instructor, never having done it before. It appealed to me. I don't know. I think it was like an act of God or something. And I loved it. And I did the course, and I started to teach up here because we had to move up here because our house was destroyed. And that's
And when you say up here,
in
Williams
Aventura.
Island.
Well, in Aventura. We ended up in Aventura. My first job was at the Hamptons on the Circle. Mm-hmm. And then I'd always heard about Williams Island. And then I auditioned with Jackie.
Oh, so Jackie was
Ashed.
here ahead of you.
Jackie was here
Broadway
ahead of me.
Jackie.
Broadway Jackie, yes. She hired me.
That's interesting.
So,
I never knew
yes.
that.
Yeah. And that's how I ended up here.
Okay, so I want to know, you got a job as a aerobics instructor. Never
Yes.
doing it before.
Correct. I mean, I did the course. I taught
But that's
a
what I'm
lot
saying.
of different places. I seemed to do a good job, so people kept hiring me.
So
I mean, I
when you
worked at a
came
village.
here and Jackie hired you, what'd she hire you for? Aerobics?
Aerobics instructor.
Okay.
Yes, and then eventually I got my
And when was
education.
that? What year was that?
right after Andrew, so 93, 94.
Wow, so you're here 20 some odd years. 30 something.
Yeah, 30.
Wow.
I'm on 30.
And Jackie was here before you.
Yes,
So you've seen a lot.
I've seen a lot. Yeah.
So here you are, aerobics teacher. You're moving your way up. You're still involved with music.
Always. Yeah. Yeah.
And yet now you're running the whole place.
Yes. Crazy. Yeah.
And you're Jackie's boss, so to speak.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
lets you think you are.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
How does it feel? It must be wonderful.
Oh, it's great. I am thankful beyond imagination for having come here.
But you know what's amazing? Imagine every single day you get up in the morning and you do something to make people feel good.
It's awesome.
That in itself is like
Yeah.
amazing. So many people say, oh my God, I dread going to work every day. I dread this, I dread that. But you actually do good for people.
I hope so. Yes.
Well, otherwise,
Yeah.
but no question about it, because
Yeah.
the spa is packed. You have great programming. People are healthier when they leave than when they come in.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
teach personally, and yet you still maintain your musical side.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
It's
that's
like a very unusual balance, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah. But they work. They work together. They really do. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me what no one knows about you. What's the secrets of Carrie? The soft side, the hard side. I mean, people see you as always upbeat, very positive, but we're not all that way.
No, I mean, I have an incredible family,
That's great.
that unfortunately don't live here. So
They're still in Texas?
in Texas, in Oklahoma, Seattle, Pennsylvania. So pretty spread apart.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. But you go to see them a lot, don't you?
I try. Yeah, I'm seeing them more and more. My parents are
That's
getting
important.
older. I'm lucky enough to have both of my parents still,
Well, they must be proud of you.
and they're great parents. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I won't take up any more of your time. This is amazing. But these are the kind of reasons why we do this, because who would ever know that we have a Air Force brat?
Air Force brat. Yeah.
The brat part hasn't changed. Still bratty, but amazing. And like I said, I think what you do, to me, if there's anything anyone could ever do in life, it's make people feel good, help people, make them better than. I mean, when you leave the day, you've left it a better place than when you started that morning.
That's always the goal. Yeah.
And and you accomplish it. Not many people get to say that. So for that, I thank you. Thank you for being
Thank
you.
I appreciate it.
You're an amazing woman, amazing teacher, amazing musician, and I'm sure a great daughter.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you so much. Okay, welcome back. We've waited a long time for this interview. It's taken us a lot of time to get this gentleman in because he's so busy running the operation of food and beverage and trying to cook, trying to come up with new menus, trying to do all these things that make us all happy on the island. And I think he's accomplished so much of what he set out to do. Thaddeus has been with us now a very short time, really considering, and yet has done so much to improve the food, improve the quality, improve the service, new ideas, new creations, and that's really what it's all about in the food and beverage department. What we can do, because it's not like a hotel where every 3-4 days people come and then they leave. They're here 365 days a year, so it gets boring for them. And when people say, wow, the same old menu, the problem you have is you go to another restaurant, you go there once, and you may not go back for a month. So the menu's fine. Here, it's a different world. So you need someone who is palatable to go into these things, change the menus, and still keep the basic menu that we have here. So in looking for the right person to find this and do this, we were very fortunate to get Thaddeus to join the Williams Island organization. But there's so much about Thaddeus that we don't know. He didn't just wake up one morning and become a chef. He didn't wake up one morning and say, okay, I'm going to Williams Island and I'm going to fix things. There's a background to this whole thing. And without going through your entire life, we would love to know, when did the food and beverage begin? Where were you born? How'd you get to where you are? But what were the steps?
Sure. Well, thank you. And very great wind up there. So for me, I would say it definitely all started with my mother. Spending time as a little one in the kitchen and learning all of that, you see history there. She did a really good job of sort of securing items from other countries and doing a really good job of integrating them in teaching and cooking and whatnot. So there was an instant sort of creative connection there. And I continued with that through high school and so on and so forth, poking at the edges of it. And what I ended up really connecting with is really the sense of team building and connection within not only your vision, but the associates, the people who work with you. I found a real passion for people. And it kind of, the more and more time I spent in this industry, the more I started to observe that maybe a lot of the people who work in this industry maybe need some different styles of focus, attention.
All right, but I want to go back a minute. You started in the kitchen with your mom.
Yep.
You had a passion for cooking.
Yep.
How did you take that and progress with it?
How did we go from Teddy's Rock and Roll Pizza?
Yeah. Which, by the way, you can still do.
This is true. Well, it's melted cheese, Bob.
Okay. Okay. And you know me.
Is it true? Honestly, I saw, as I grew, I began to see a lot of cultures being revealed through food. And I was fascinated by that. And so having the opportunity to have lived in multiple countries, that was something that really resonated with me.
And what was that all about, living in different countries?
Well, it started out as a result of being an Army brat.
You too?
Yes. So we were based in Stuttgart, and my father was with FORSCOM, which is Department of Warfare. And as a result of that, it gave us some exposure, and that lit a fire underneath me. When I returned, with my binky in hand and my pacifier neatly packed,
Came back to the States, and how old were you with your binky?
I was 8 when I returned to the States, and continued to work alongside my mother, going to different cooking programs on the weekends and things like that. And then eventually I got a job in a kitchen, and that's where a lot of this really connected for me.
Now, this kitchen was back in the States, obviously.
Back in the States, back in Atlanta, and the fact that someone would pay me money to play around and create some things was just mind-blowing to me. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed learning about an operation. I was young and dumb, and so I was willing to work long hours and figure stuff out. And it really just, it provided me an opportunity to see some of the people around me in my environment and see who I was becoming and kind of figure out where I could go from there and how the interests could overlap. Language became a huge thing for me, in my high school days, and it continued from there and has continued throughout most of my life. And so I looked at food and where you're tasting things in the mouth and how that sources back to the different languages that different communities will speak. And so I became really captivated by this.
Now, this is all in Atlanta.
This is all starting in Atlanta. Atlanta is an extremely international hub. I know Miami is what Miami is, but
Atlanta is.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I went to the Atlanta International School. So for me, I may have had one other person in my course level that would have been from America, but everyone else is from a different country. So
you mentioned food and language,
Yep.
and it became part and parcel of each other.
Yes.
How is that relationship? In other words, because you're hearing a language, just have somebody from Serbia, somebody from Italy, somebody from Rome. How does that translate to what you were thinking?
Okay, so it's actually really deals with the textures of the food, the acids, the butters, the spices, where the flavors take place. With that food and where that flavor takes place in the mouth or the throat will directly correspond to where the language source is. And so where you taste foods in your mouth or throat, then mirroring where the sound comes from. So if you have an understanding of that, then you can start to create food and kind of back it in. So you back things into a culture. So if I look at a Germanic culture, right? I spent 4 years in Germany, right? So there I've got a lot of acid, pickling, texture, right? But I also have a lot of butter, fat, grease, hearty, right? So the way with which you're gonna taste a lot of that food is gonna be more in the back of your throat, which English being a Germanic language, it originates from the back of your throat. When we spend time in France or in Switzerland and starting to integrate a little bit more of some of those cooking techniques, that's where I started to understand that you're actually able to taste these foods more pronounced in the front, which is of your mouth or your tongue. Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying obviously makes a lot of sense, and it's also
No, it
very,
doesn't. It's crazy.
and it's very
Crazy.
technical.
Sure.
Exactly. So how did you? Okay, you're in a kitchen. You want to make a bowl of pasta,
Sure.
or you want to make scrambled eggs, or you want to make
Yeah.
a steak, or you want to have whatever you're doing it. Where does the taste and the portion of the mouth come into? When you're cooking a steak, are you thinking, okay, this steak is going to be a certain way, or you
Yeah.
just want to make the best steak you
No,
can?
no. So I've got the protein or the steak in front of me, and then I just know from my practices, if I want it to be more Asian, I'm going to go this direction. And Asian can mean multiple different categories and flavor profiles. If it's going to be more French, or if it's going to be more classic American. So honestly, what ends up happening is the inner fat kid comes out, and then it's like, let's do a little hybrid, let's get some Asian, let's get some American, and let's bring the two together. And that's just done by utilizing some of the ingredients that bridge. Like one of the things that you'll see very easily done is you'll see butters incorporated with soys. Well, there's the soy obviously being the Asian, but the butter acts as an emulsifier, a binder, and it makes the flavors be a little bit more smooth as you consume them, as opposed to it being a sharp cut of a flavor. It doesn't have the linger. So just essentially working with different ingredients to bridge creatively this lingering effect in your mouth. Your mouth to me is just like a giant canvas, right? So I used to have a gallery space in Atlanta, and I painted for several years, and I had a great run at that. And to me, it was looking at these large canvases. So I would paint on canvases that were 10 feet in height by 8 feet, or 5 by 5s, or whatever the size would be. And the idea was to just truly go into it and create this crazy picture, this effect, this response, this interaction.
So the kitchen is your canvas.
I would say so, yes.
And that's interesting because it explains it, because I see what you do here. You're very much into flavors. You're very much into the very technical side of foods. But yet at the end of the day, the creativity is a combination of taste, flavor, protein, all the combinations.
And it's exciting. It's incredibly exciting.
So
It keeps me up at
you're
night.
like a research scientist.
I'd say so.
You take all of the abilities you have of researching what goes into a meal,
Yeah.
and then blending it to get a certain result.
Yes, but I would say it's, you over time you've learned that that's all well and good, but if nobody understands what you're eating, then you're constantly dining alone, right? So what's kind of cool about that is taking that same enthusiasm, and in this capacity here, being able to diversify it so it's approachable, right? Because having a creative aspect is wonderful, but if I can't communicate it, then it falls flat, and that's where the challenge is.
All right, so you're going through your life, you realize you have a talent for this, obviously, and it's a special talent. And you grow, you work in restaurants, you grow little by little. How does one become, as you are very beautifully, a James Beard chef? Because I don't know, a lot of people understand that's one of the titles you hold, and it's quite an impressive title.
It is.
So first tell me what it means to be a James Beard chef, and then how did you get to it? How did you get to be a James Beard chef?
So I had my first restaurant. I opened my first restaurant when I was 22. And since then, I've created a series of restaurants and concepts, whether they're freestanding or for larger companies. And in doing that, I've been able to push my culinary boundaries, because the request will represent various niches. What's interesting about the Atlanta market is Atlanta doesn't try to be New York. It doesn't try to be LA. In Atlanta, you can be weird. You can be eclectic. You can go off the beaten path from a culinary perspective, and it's embraced. That enthusiasm curates an environment where you have wonderful collaborative chefs who are itching to get out of their kitchens after hours, and who's cooking what, where, and whose kitchen at 1 o'clock in the morning. I think it was the culmination of being able to spend time with all of these amazing chefs that allowed me the pedigree to be able to move forward in my development, but also to be able to start checking the boxes of accolades. The road to Charleston was what I named my James Beard dinner. And for me, it was very...
Okay, so wait, so let me go back.
Sure.
So first of all, tell me what it means to be a James Beard chef.
Okay. So James Beard chefs are essentially chefs that are recognized in various categories, whether it's a style of cuisine, a technique, an enthusiasm to the background. So similar to sort of a downgraded version of the Michelin, right? And the idea is there can be various categories. Some are directed towards authors and food writers, Kenji Lopez being one of them. He's done a great job. Then you'll get Kevin Gillespie, who does some really cool eclectic stuff. He's Red Beer brands and some interesting things there. So it's an opportunity for the industry to call out chefs who are developing. It's an opportunity for the industry to call out chefs who have achieved certain rankings. It really has a diverse range of what it sort of allows the accolade to produce.
Okay, there's thousands of chefs. How do they find Thaddeus and say, okay, let's take a look at him and see if he deserves the title James Beard Chef?
I think Atlanta was an amazing market to be able to get exposure to that. And then segueing into Charleston also helped further that. I had been working in and out of LA as well with some concept development. So I was hitting various niches and getting sort of accolades that were stretching beyond just the Southeast, and they were transferring over. I was in the right place at right time by way of some relationships that I met, how I was developed, and really it's just about trying to be a good steward of that. And as a result of that, that I think is what cleared the path for this for me. So, but going back to it, for me, it's never been it's never been a you thing. It's always been you get there by way of everybody around you. So for me, it was super important to create a collaborative mentality in my kitchens and a collaborative mentality echoed into the James Beard. And so the idea there with that is that we called it the Road to Charleston. And I grabbed essentially 6 other James Beard nominated chefs, or chefs who have won, or chefs who have been in and around the JBF for a long time. And this is a great opportunity to allow this immersion of culture. And we went everywhere from something that seems pedestrian but incredibly overly complicated and scientific, and then we went bougie and Parisian, and we wanted to be able to have the entire experience kind of open up like that. And it still, to this day, was one of my favorite meals I've ever cooked, and it's amazing. But it goes back to, I think, to your point, some of the artistry to it, and really being able to have this, when you're working at that level, it's different. It's just different.
Well, and that brings you full circle to being at Williams Island now. And I always remember, and I've been here for quite a while, and every time a chef would come in, and especially, I can't say a lot of them had your qualifications because they obviously didn't, but the frustrations they all experienced, because here you have your hamburger, your steak, your chicken, your fish, and they really never had an opportunity to use their creativity because it was a very comfort food, for a better word. You have been able to come in here and take your talents, take your imagination, culinary imagination, and do other things here. And you've bridged the gap between the monotony of comfort food and the beauty and the excitement of some of these other items. How were you able to do that? Because it's a tough crowd, rightfully so, because most people don't understand a lot of what you do. It's an education for them.
Sure, but also most people don't understand the clientele they're performing for, right? Exactly. And I would say that you get into an operation and your first 90 days, 120 days, you're really just observing everything. And I would say that in the time I've been here, I've gone from observation to addicted. I think that there's so much potential here because you do have, yes, you have that Americana, you've got that traditional comfort route, but you also have members who really want to dance, and you want some members who want to be slightly taken outside their comfort zone, and then you got members who want nothing to do with any of that whatsoever. And I think that is probably the diversity of that is one of the things that excites me most about coming here every day is you get to cook in all those different capacities, right? Typically a chef will have to be limited to essentially their environment, right? But here we foster so many different mentalities, lifestyles, environments, and to watch where the dining progresses on this island over the last year, it's not that I've necessarily been able to push through, it's that the members have been receptive to allow me to try new things. And I think that it just comes down to the communication and the trust piece. When we first talked about all of this, the line I just kept saying is we've got to rebuild trust. And until we do that, it's not really going to matter what comes out of that kitchen. We just need to make sure we're doing it consistently every single time. We've established a pretty good track record. over the last since I came, and now is kind of where we get to have these little avenues where we get to dance and kind of get to be able to create small markets inside the general market that allows for some of those interests to be serviced.
Well, you know, I'm gonna bring up something you said earlier, and I think it's been part and parcel of why you're successful with this. You said people. You listen, you talk to people, you find out their idiosyncrasies, their likes, their dislikes. One of the things I found about you, and I say this as a compliment because it's very rare, in the hospitality industry, when somebody has a complaint, the natural go-to for the person they're complaining to is to become defensive, argumentative.
Sure.
Or I always say, if you're a leader, I'll listen. Let me think about it. Let me look into it, and I'll get back to you. Yeah. Rather than have an hour dissertation, which goes nowhere. Yep. I have found people, and I've seen meetings where they rip you apart, they criticize, you sit there, you're calm, you listen, and you look for what they're saying, and you know something? You make the change if they're right. Yeah. You really care about what they're saying.
Absolutely.
And I find very rarely in any form of leadership do people do that. You have that knack to do that, and I think it goes back to what you said. You listen to people. Because look, if we don't please our customer, no matter how great a chef you are, what good is it?
Sure. Well, thank you for that. I think it goes back to something that my mentor taught me very early on, which is you don't have customers that walk through your door. Two types of people walk through your door. You have friends and you have family, and that's it. And do everything with that mentality, and that'll be what sets you apart. So I look at it very much like if there's something has gone awry in the meal, the dish may be perfect, but it just didn't work for that person. Let's find out how to make it work for that person. I think that the opinion of the members here is an opinion that's worth listening to because it got here. It didn't just wake up at Williams Island either. And so to be able to be receptive to that feedback, I think there's a great beauty in that. There's a humility to it, and it just allows for growth.
And I want to tell you something. Williams Island has close to 5,000 people living here. That's a lot. And a lot of these people travel, they go to all different restaurants, they go different places, they have their tastes, their dislikes, but they have a lot to offer in opinions too, because they've been to all these places.
Yes.
And it's almost like you coming to school every day.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying they're all right or they're all wrong, but they all have an honest, legitimate opinion.
Sure.
But also one of the exciting things you have is we have this restaurant where you can be creative and do all these things, but you still have to work within the confines of comfort. Then we have the grill downstairs, which is becoming, the court side is amazing what's going on down there. But in another 12 months, you had to be prepared to open up the new club. And that's going to be where you can really let yourself go with creativity, formalizing it, something special. And whether it's 3 nights a week, 4, we haven't decided yet. But that will be where the specialty deals, the specialty menus, the wine tastings. So you have almost 3 totally different outlets to play with.
I don't need to leave, Bob. I can stay here.
Well, we don't want you to leave.
Well, I'm just saying 10, 15 years from now.
As long as you keep making me my grilled cheese sandwiches, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah. No, but I think that is, I can't speak for anybody else who's occupied by this role, but the way that I look at it, the enthusiasm with which I look at it, you have such an opportunity here to, I don't mean to say dismissively, do whatever you want, but you can work towards so many different styles and preferences and hopes and asks. And it's not hard to do one-offs here and there. And it's just, I think there's so much of that keeps me engaged and excited because there's more, right? As opposed to, by no means is there just one operation, one restaurant here. And that there's, we're talking about what can I do a pop-up over here and can I start this over here and when, can I do, so it's all of these changes that I think you have allowed to take place here on this island with bringing Jeff Klein in, allowing and trusting the vision, trusting the process where, again, I can't speak for where it was before, but just, I know what I'm a part of right now and I think it's a very important thing. It's something I'm excited about and something I really genuinely care about. So
and it shows. And when we made some decisions, number one, bringing Jeff in, We needed somebody with not only a food and beverage background, because I don't believe a good COO, CEO, whatever you want to call Jeff, of a community of this size can be successful if he hasn't first been in food and beverage. Sure. I believe that's critical because that becomes your partner. Mm-hmm. And if he's an obstacle, then you'll never make it. Sure. If he's an ally, then it really works. And I think what we've got between the two of you is a tremendous ability. Yeah. We have a board of directors who wants to upgrade, wants to continue to do the right thing, and is very supportive.
Extremely supportive. The boards have been, yeah. And again, that's an interesting thing because that's not something that historically I've had to integrate with, but incredibly supportive, right? It's not a, I don't look at the boards here at any capacity where they're condemning or they're restrictive. They're go for it. You know, they see the response and again, I think it's about trusting the process, and I think you're seeing in the day-to-day the proof of the pudding.
Well, and I think the reason you're getting such a great positive response is one thing: you listen. And that to me is probably the most critical component. Communication is so critical in anything. And I commend you for it, because I will tell you, of all your values, if you don't listen, you start off 2 strikes against you. Absolutely. And for that, we thank you. So you're a James Beard chef? Is that the truth? You got to tell us a few other people about that, but we'll get to them. But I thank you so much. It's been really what we've accomplished with getting, not we, what you've brought to the table, literally to the table.
It's a we, man.
It is. It's a team, and I can't thank you enough for it. And I'm thrilled to have you here. I hope you all got to see a little bit more about who runs this whole, and I do say run this operation here, because it is a business unto itself. It's not a freestanding building. It's a building amongst 5,000 people, and they're all owners. Mm-hmm. And it takes a certain person, which I believe that's what you are. And I think that's part of your success.
Thank you.
And I thank you so much.
Thank you.